Welcome to True Echo, the channel where real stories echo louder than injustice. Today's story will leave you speechless. A poor black girl on scholarship is humiliated in front of the entire class by a group of wealthy bullies. But what they didn't know. She had the courage, the receipts, and the power to take down their entire school, and change the system forever. This isn't just a story about racism or revenge, it's a story about what happens when you refuse to stay silent. Now, let's begin. The cold steel of the scissors made a sound Jasmine Carter would never forget, a metallic snap that tore through the silence of her history class. Her hair, once neatly coiled into soft, dark curls, fell in ringlets to the classroom floor. For a moment, time stopped. 22 students sat frozen in their desks at Sterling Academy, eyes wide, mouths open, shocked at what had just happened. Jasmine didn't move. She reached one hand back to the nape of her neck, fingers brushing against uneven stubble. Her heart raced, pounding in her chest like a war drum, but her face remained calm. Controlled. Determined. Behind her stood Justin Sinclair, Sterling's golden boy, rich, arrogant, and completely untouchable. He still held the scissors like a trophy, grinning like he'd just won a game. His friends, Blake Morrison, Emma Collins, and Derek Allen, chuckled nervously, as if unsure whether to laugh or brace for consequences. But what chilled Jasmine more than the assault was the silence that followed. The teacher, Mr. David Matthews, continued writing on the board, as though nothing had happened. As I was saying, the Treaty of Versailles. Jasmine stood slowly. Her chair scraped back against the tile floor with a long, grating sound. She didn't yell. Didn't scream. Instead, she picked up one of the fallen curls from the floor, turned to Mr. Matthews, and said calmly. "Mr. Matthews, I'd like to report an assault." He finally turned, chalk in hand, his expression impatient and dismissive. "Sit down, Jasmine. Don't make a scene. It's just hair. Just hair." Her eyes narrowed. "Should I collect the strands as evidence for the police or leave them here for the investigators?" Gasps rippled through the classroom. Justin's smug grin flickered. His friends stopped laughing. Matthews tried again, harder this time, his voice colder. "Jasmine, stop overreacting. You need to learn how to take a joke. Maybe if you weren't always trying to stand out." Jasmine cut him off. "You mean maybe if I wasn't black, poor, and smarter than half this class, I wouldn't have been assaulted?" The silence that followed was thunderous. Mr. Matthews looked like he'd been slapped. Justin took a step back. "I want every one of you to remember this moment," Jasmine said, her voice unwavering. "Remember who stayed silent, and who tried to justify it." With her head held high, even with her hair brutally hacked, Jasmine gathered her books, walked to the door, and turned back just once. "This doesn't end here." Then she walked out. In the hallway, Jasmine's phone buzzed. She pulled it from her backpack and froze. An Instagram notification. Emma Collins uploaded a video, finally taught her her place. Stay humble. #SterlingLife. She tapped the video. Her breath caught. There she was, the moment of the assault captured on camera, her humiliation broadcast for the world. Emma had recorded it all. Jasmine's hands trembled. Then her jaw set. She pressed a contact on speed dial. "Hey, Mama," she said, her voice tight. "It happened. They did it. But I'm not staying silent. Baby, I'm right here," Angela Carter's voice crackled through the line. "We'll fight this. Together." Jasmine wiped her eyes and ended the call. Then she dialed again. "Uncle Mike? It's Jasmine. I need your help. I want to go public." Mike Evans, her uncle and a respected local news reporter, answered immediately. "I saw the video. Jasmine, I've got your back. We'll take this all the way." A third call. Lauren Kim speaking. Ms. Kim, this is Jasmine Carter. From Sterling Academy. You said to call if I ever needed help. Lauren's voice turned razor sharp. I've seen the footage. Preserve everything. I'll be contacting the school and the authorities within the hour. By the time Jasmine reached the front steps of Sterling Academy, the video was already going viral. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Jasmine and hashtag Sterling Cover-Up began trending across social media. And inside the school's main office, Principal Patricia Brooks was drowning in angry emails and calls. Jasmine stood alone on the steps, hair uneven and raw, but face steady, glowing in the afternoon sun. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every child who had ever been silenced. Inside Sterling Academy's administrative wing, chaos erupted. Principal Patricia Brooks stood at the center of it all, her normally calm and composed demeanor slipping as she read yet another email subject line screaming, "Racism in your school, fire the teacher." Her assistant tried to close the blinds to block out the gathering crowd of news vans, but it was too late. The media storm was already here. The prestigious school's once untouchable reputation, built on a century of elite alumni and luxury branding, was unraveling in real time, all because one black scholarship student dared to fight back. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat quietly in a small, plain room at a law office downtown. Beside her were two women, her attorney, Lauren Kim, sharp, methodical, unflinching, and Alexandra Chen, an unexpected ally who had reached out just hours earlier. Alexandra had her own story. Her sister Emily Chen had once been a star student at Sterling, until she'd been beaten in a locker room prank gone too far. The school had covered it up. The Chen family had been quietly paid off and forced to leave the state. Jasmine listened carefully as Alexandra spoke. "They bullied my sister, too," Alexandra said, her voice trembling. "And when she tried to speak out, they turned the entire student body against her. Then Principal Brooks told my parents, if you want a future in this community, you'll keep quiet." Lauren placed a comforting hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "This case just went from one student's assault to a systemic cover-up. Jasmine, we're not just fighting for you, we're exposing the entire corrupt machine." Lauren pulled a flash drive from her briefcase. "This is the preliminary file I've built. Between the video, screenshots of group chats, and new testimonies from other students and families, we have enough to request an emergency injunction against the school. But we need more than evidence," Jasmine said softly. "We need voices." And voices were rising. By that evening, the hashtag Justice for Jasmine movement had drawn nationwide attention. Former students of Sterling began posting anonymous testimonies, stories of racial slurs, biased grading, sexual harassment, and administrators turning a blind eye. Even Blake Morrison's mother, Catherine, who had delivered Jasmine the USB full of damning files, released a public statement. "As a parent complicit in my silence, I must speak up. I once believed protecting my family meant shielding the truth. But after what happened to Jasmine, I realize silence is the greatest betrayal. I support her fully, and I demand accountability." The pressure mounted. Inside Sterling Academy, Justin Sinclair was no longer walking the halls with his usual swagger. Students whispered. Faculty avoided eye contact. Sponsors and donors began withdrawing pledges. At home, Justin slammed his bedroom door and scrolled through dozens of angry DMs. "You're disgusting. Hope your rich daddy buys you a soul. Rot in hell, racist." His hands shook as he clicked on Emma Collins' Instagram story, the video she had posted. Over 4 million views. Hundreds of thousands of comments. And now? She deleted it. But it was far too late. His phone rang, his father, Richard Sinclair, one of Sterling's largest donors and a longtime board member. "What the hell did you do, Justin?" Richard barked. "You think I built this school's influence over 30 years just for you to throw it away with a pair of damn scissors?" "I didn't think," Justin began. "No. You didn't. And now they're coming for us. Richard hung up. Back at the law office, Jasmine watched the chaos unfold online. She knew what Sterling was about to do. Try to flip the narrative. Paint her as disruptive. Pretend they were the real victims. She was ready. The next morning, the school intercom crackled to life. Jasmine Carter, please report to Principal Brooks' office. The words felt rehearsed. Sweet. Almost pleasant. But Jasmine knew better. This was war. As she entered the office, Principal Brooks sat behind her enormous mahogany desk, wearing a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Beside her sat a sharply dressed man with slick back hair and a crocodile-skin briefcase. Jasmine, Brooks began. This is Mr. Hartwell. He represents Sterling's legal counsel. Jasmine sat silently, her posture perfect. We want to resolve this civilly, Hartwell said. We're prepared to offer you an expanded scholarship, full tuition, plus college expenses. In exchange, we ask that you drop your complaints, cease public commentary, and remove the video from circulation. He slid a document across the table. A non-disclosure agreement. Jasmine stared at it. Then she looked up. You think this is about money, she said, her voice level. You think after what you did, what you allowed, I'll take a bribe and disappear. Be careful, Brooks warned. This kind of behavior can affect your future. My future, Jasmine said slowly, is brighter than anything this school will ever offer. She pulled out her phone and pressed record. Let the world hear you say it again, she said. That I should stay silent. That speaking the truth is dangerous. Hartwell lunged for the phone, but Jasmine stood. No need, she said, slipping the device back into her pocket. You already said enough. And with that, she walked out, again. Not just from the office. From fear. From silence. From the illusion that she was powerless. The next day, Jasmine and Lauren filed a lawsuit. Federal Court. The title? Carter vs. Sterling Academy. And the world was watching. The morning the lawsuit went public, Jasmine Carter woke to a tidal wave of headlines. Student sues elite academy after racist attack, video evidence goes viral. Scholarship student stands up to rich bully, and exposes systemic corruption. Carter vs. Sterling, this could change everything. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Messages of support poured in from students, activists, celebrities, even strangers across the country who had faced their own version of injustice. A local civil rights group issued a statement naming Jasmine a modern Rosa Parks of education reform. But inside Sterling Academy, fear had replaced arrogance. At a hastily convened board meeting, Richard Sinclair sat at the head of the long glass table, flanked by a red-faced Principal Brooks and the ever-slick Jonathan Hartwell. Around them, the rest of the board murmured anxiously, casting nervous glances at the stack of papers in front of them, copies of the federal lawsuit. This has gone too far, muttered board chairwoman Meredith Whitley. One girl and a lawyer shouldn't be able to jeopardize an institution like Sterling. Hartwell leaned forward. We still have options. We expel her. Say she's creating a hostile learning environment. Leak that she's aggressive, unstable. Reframe this as an isolated incident being exaggerated for attention. But Sinclair slammed his hand on the table. That won't work anymore. She's too smart. Too prepared. You all saw the video, hell, half the country has. If we retaliate now, we look guilty. We are guilty, murmured one board member, too quietly for most to hear. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat with Lauren Kim in the sleek offices of a major civil rights firm that had now joined her case pro bono. Lauren spread out the strategy documents across the conference table. We've subpoenaed Sterling's internal records. But the real weapon is the USB drive from Catherine Morrison. It outlines years of cover-ups, bribes, racially biased disciplinary records, and even emails that suggest faculty knew about abuse and deliberately ignored it. Jasmine looked over at Alexandra Chen, who had just walked in with a fresh manila folder. "You're not going to believe this," Alexandra said, setting the folder on the table. A former staff member from Sterling's admissions office just came forward. She says Principal Brooks routinely rejected qualified Black and Latino applicants, even when they scored higher than legacy students. She's willing to testify. Lauren's eyebrows rose. That could blow the doors off their reputation for good. Jasmine sat back in her chair. It was happening. The silence was finally breaking, not just for her, but for everyone Sterling had silenced. That afternoon, while Sterling's elite students sat in their quiet, manicured classrooms pretending things were normal, a very different kind of lesson was unfolding at the federal courthouse just 30 miles away. Dozens of cameras lined the steps. Reporters swarmed as Jasmine exited a black sedan, flanked by Lauren Kim and Alexandra Chen. One reporter shouted, "Jasmine, what do you hope comes from this case?" Jasmine paused. Looked directly into the lens. "Justice," she said. "Not just for me, but for every student who's been silenced, dismissed, or told they didn't belong." Inside the courthouse, the judge presiding over the pre-trial hearing was Honorable Elizabeth Harper, a no-nonsense federal judge known for her integrity and impartiality. As the session began, the courtroom fell into tense silence. Lauren Kim stood, presenting the case with piercing clarity. "This is not just a matter of bullying," she declared. "This is about institutional racism, abuse of power, and a long-standing pattern of retaliation against students who dared to speak up. My client has the evidence. Sterling Academy has the history. And now, we have the platform to expose the truth." Across the aisle, Jonathan Hartwell fumbled to respond. "Your Honor, this is an overblown media stunt by a student seeking attention. Sterling Academy has provided educational excellence for over 100 years. Judge Harper raised a hand, silencing him. "Mr. Hartwell, I've reviewed the video. And the email records. This court takes these allegations very seriously." Sterling Academy had hoped the court would dismiss the suit quickly. Instead, they got a very different outcome. "I am granting an emergency motion to freeze Sterling Academy's disciplinary powers over Jasmine Carter," Judge Harper said firmly. "Effective immediately, the school is forbidden from retaliating in any form, including expulsion, suspension, or grade tampering. Furthermore, a full federal investigation into Sterling's practices is now authorized." A shocked gasp rippled through the room. Jasmine's fingers tightened slightly around her mother's. Angela Carter, who had quietly slipped into the back row of the gallery, looked on with tears in her eyes. Her baby girl was changing the world, one courtroom at a time. Back at Sterling, panic spread like wildfire. Teachers whispered in hallways. Students scrolled social media with stunned expressions. Even the wealthiest donors began demanding answers. Meanwhile, Justin Sinclair sat alone in the school library, no longer surrounded by his clique. Emma had deleted all her social accounts. Blake had transferred out quietly the day before. For the first time in his life, Justin couldn't buy his way out of a mess. And deep down, he knew he deserved every moment of it. But Jasmine wasn't done yet. That night, as she sat at home with her mother, she stared at the ceiling, voice quiet but firm. "They're still trying to control the story. Still trying to spin it." Angela stroked her daughter's hand. "So what are you going to do?" Jasmine turned to her. "I'm going to take the truth, and put it on every screen in the country." She wasn't bluffing. Jasmine Carter was about to turn her lawsuit into a movement. The morning after the court hearing, Jasmine Carter clicked publish. Her carefully edited video, titled "What Sterling Academy Did to Me, and Why I Won't Stay Silent," hit YouTube at 9 a.m. sharp. In just over 7 minutes, Jasmine laid out everything: the attack, the school's response, the attempted cover-up, and the evidence they hoped would never surface. It was raw, personal, and devastating. Clips from Emma's now-deleted video were overlaid with Jasmine's calm narration. Screenshots of hateful group chats, photos of her chopped hair on the classroom floor, and snips of documents from the USB drive played like a timeline of horror. But the heart of it all was Jasmine herself, staring straight into the camera. "My name is Jasmine Carter. I'm 17. I'm a straight-A student. And on October 15th, in a classroom full of people, a boy cut my hair because I was black and too confident. The teacher did nothing. The school tried to bury it. And now they want to pretend it never happened." She leaned forward slightly. "But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for every student who's ever been bullied, silenced, or ignored, just because they didn't come from money. I'm here to say, no more." By noon, the video had crossed 2 million views. By nightfall, it was at 7 million and counting. Celebrities reposted it. Influencers analyzed it. Civil rights groups declared it a rallying cry for a generation. Across TikTok, students from all over the country began sharing their own #Sterling stories, videos detailing similar abuse and racism in their schools. The hashtag trended on every major platform for a week straight. Jasmine had sparked a movement. Inside Sterling Academy, the atmosphere was toxic. Principal Brooks barked orders at her overworked staff, trying desperately to control the narrative. She issued an internal memo reminding teachers to remain neutral and not comment on ongoing legal matters. But it was too late. The walls were crumbling from within. One teacher, Ms. Dana Patel, finally snapped. She posted an open letter online, stating, "I've taught at Sterling for 11 years. And I can no longer stay silent." What Jasmine Carter experienced was not an isolated incident, it was the inevitable result of a school culture that protects power, not people. It went viral. Meanwhile, Jasmine was contacted by a major news network requesting an exclusive primetime interview. Lauren Kim carefully negotiated the terms, ensuring Jasmine could speak freely. On live TV, Jasmine sat poised and articulate across from veteran journalist Lisa Crenshaw. "Jasmine," Lisa began, "you've become a national figure in less than a week. How does it feel?" Jasmine took a breath. "Honestly, it's overwhelming. But also, empowering. Because for the first time, people are listening. And what do you want to tell students watching this right now who may be suffering in silence?" Her eyes burned with purpose. "Document everything. Don't let them gaslight you. And never be afraid to speak the truth, even if your voice shakes." The interview aired during primetime and was viewed by over 18 million households. The next day, Jasmine received a personal letter from Congresswoman Erica Dawson, inviting her to speak at a congressional hearing on educational discrimination. But not everyone was celebrating. Justin Sinclair's father, Richard, made one final push to salvage the family name. He hired a private PR firm and released a polished statement claiming that Justin had been manipulated by a culture of mischief, and that the incident was blown out of proportion. It backfired spectacularly. Within hours, someone leaked additional screenshots, conversations between Justin and his friends joking about Jasmine's race, appearance, and even the plan to post the video online. Justin became radioactive. Every college that had extended him early admission rescinded it. His father's law firm faced public protests. Clients pulled out. The Sinclair name, once a symbol of power, had become poison. Meanwhile, Lauren Kim worked quietly behind the scenes, building her most potent legal strategy yet. "The Board of Education has been subpoenaed," she told Jasmine late one evening as they sat in the Carter apartment. "And we're petitioning for criminal charges against Principal Brooks, David Matthews, and any administrator who knowingly covered up racist incidents." Jasmine blinked. "Criminal?" Lauren nodded. "Yes. If we prove they conspired to suppress complaints, destroyed evidence, or retaliated against students, that's obstruction. It's not just a civil matter anymore. It's a crime." At the same time, the Department of Education launched its own investigation into Sterling's discriminatory practices. Federal agents quietly began collecting internal documents, interviewing former staff, and securing digital records. Sterling Academy was no longer just facing a lawsuit. It was under federal investigation. But as the legal noose tightened, Jasmine remained focused on her mission. She began working with civil rights organizations to create a nationwide initiative, Break the Silence, a campaign to give students tools, resources, and legal aid when facing discrimination in schools. She recorded PSAs, visited campuses, and began mentoring other scholarship students who had experienced bullying or injustice. Her story was no longer just about what happened in one classroom. It was about what was happening across America. One afternoon, as Jasmine left a speaking engagement at a local university, she spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Blake Morrison. He approached slowly, hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically unsure. "I'm not here to defend myself," he said quietly. "I know what I did. Or didn't do. And I've spent every day since that moment hating myself for staying silent." Jasmine studied him. The Blake she remembered, smug, untouchable, was gone. This version looked human. "My mom told me about what she gave you," he added. "That USB drive. She's not the same either. None of us are." Jasmine nodded slowly. "Good. Because silence is complicity." "I know," he said. "And I want to make it right." She looked him in the eye. "Then help someone who needs it. Speak up next time. Don't let another Jasmine happen." Blake blinked, then nodded, a little stunned. Jasmine walked away without waiting for thanks. Because this wasn't about redemption. It was about revolution. At exactly 8:02 a.m. on a crisp Monday morning, the halls of Sterling Academy trembled in a way they never had before. Students watched in stunned silence as 3 black SUVs rolled up to the front gates. From them emerged federal agents wearing navy jackets with FBI stitched boldly across their backs. In their hands were folders, tablets, and sealed warrants. What had once been unthinkable was now happening in real time. An FBI raid. Inside, Principal Patricia Brooks sat at her desk, staring down at the subpoena she'd received just 2 days earlier, but she had convinced herself it was a scare tactic. A bluff. Now, as agents poured into her office, her face lost all its usual polish. "This is outrageous," she stammered. "You can't just." Special Agent Mark Reynolds cut her off coldly. "Ma'am, we have a court order to seize documents, digital records, and communications relating to the ongoing investigation of corruption, racial discrimination, and obstruction of justice at Sterling Academy. You are not to interfere." Meanwhile, in room 103, Mr. David Matthews tried to act calm as agents searched through his desk and computer. But when they pulled out a flash drive labeled "Disciplinary Exceptions, Legacy Only," his hands trembled. They had found it. The policy files that proved minority and scholarship students were graded more harshly, disciplined more quickly, and denied leadership roles in favor of legacy children, even when the latter failed to meet minimum requirements. It wasn't just Jasmine's story anymore. It was a federal case. The footage of agents entering the school went viral by lunchtime, aired on national news, dissected by anchors and commentators. Jasmine watched it all from a safe distance, not out of fear, but caution. Lauren Kim had insisted she stay away for her own protection. Still, when she saw Agent Reynolds walk out of Sterling holding a thick binder marked "Confidential," her heart skipped. It was real now. Everything they'd said, everything they'd exposed, was no longer just allegations. It was evidence. That evening, Jasmine, Angela, and Lauren sat in their modest living room, the TV screen glowing with the latest update. Federal officials have confirmed they've recovered internal emails from Sterling Academy's administrative staff discussing targeted retaliation against scholarship students. One email allegedly reads, "These kids should be grateful they're here at all, remind them of that if they push back." Angela covered her mouth, eyes brimming with tears. Jasmine stared at the screen, silent. Then, her phone buzzed. A new message. You changed my life. Thank you. M. Another. I'm going to speak out too. I've been scared for years. But not anymore. And another. Because of you, I reported my teacher today. I finally feel brave. Jasmine held her phone tightly, her chest rising and falling. This wasn't just justice. This was transformation. A week later, the federal charges came down like a hammer. Principal Patricia Brooks, obstruction of justice, falsification of academic records, and suppression of civil rights complaints. David Matthews, willful negligence, discrimination, and destruction of student complaints. Board members, various charges relating to bribery, manipulation of admission data, and failure to report abuse. Richard Sinclair, charged with conspiracy and financial coercion in an educational institution. The country gasped. In court, as the defendant stood in shackles before Judge Elizabeth Harper, the atmosphere felt like history being made. Justin Sinclair, no longer smug or defiant, sat hunched in the defendant's section. His face was drawn, his eyes empty. His mother clutched tissues, unable to lift her head. When Judge Harper addressed the room, her voice was solemn and unflinching. This court does not simply see a school scandal. It sees a systemic rot that prioritized power over children, money over ethics, and silence over justice. Let this trial be a message: no institution, no matter how old or wealthy, is above the law. One by one, sentences were read. Brooks, 3 years in prison. Matthews, 2 years. Sinclair, 18 months in a correctional youth facility, followed by community restitution and a lifetime ban from holding public educational roles. As the gavel came down, the audience burst into hushed whispers. Jasmine sat in the front row. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply exhaled, like a survivor who had finally reached the other side. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. Protesters, supporters, former students. Some held signs. Thank you, Jasmine. Silence is complicity. Truth always wins. Jasmine stepped up to the microphones, flanked by Lauren and Alexandra. I never wanted to be famous, she said plainly. I never wanted to make headlines. I just wanted to be safe. To learn. To be treated like I belonged. She looked out at the sea of faces, so many like hers. Sterling Academy thought it could silence me. They thought cutting my hair would cut my voice. They were wrong. Thunderous applause. Jasmine raised her hand. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Schools across this country have similar problems, and it's time we fix them. Together. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. But Jasmine didn't answer. She turned, took her mother's hand, and walked away, not from the fight, but toward a bigger one. Because the girl they thought they could break, had just broken the system. Just days after the sentencing of Sterling Academy's leadership, Jasmine Carter stood beneath the white marble rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, her heart pounding as cameras flashed all around her. She had been invited to testify before Congress, an extraordinary honor few teenagers ever experienced. But Jasmine wasn't here for recognition. She was here to speak for the silenced. She wore a sleek navy suit, her hair now short but styled proudly, a symbol of reclamation. Beside her stood her mother, Angela, and attorney Lauren Kim, both beaming with quiet pride. Inside the hearing room, dozens of lawmakers, advocates, and educational experts sat in rapt attention as Jasmine stepped up to the microphone. My name is Jasmine Carter, she began, her voice calm and powerful. Just 6 months ago, I was an ordinary high school senior, until a group of wealthy students attacked me in class, and my teacher did nothing. What happened afterward exposed not only the rot within my school but the widespread systems that protect the privileged and punish the powerless. She paused, letting the silence settle. I am here today to support the Carter Act, a law that ensures no student, regardless of race, income, or background, is denied protection and dignity in our nation's schools. We must establish independent oversight in every educational institution. Because when the fox guards the henhouse, injustice thrives. Several lawmakers nodded, visibly moved. Across the country, millions watched the live stream. Social media exploded. Hashtag Carter Act now. Hashtag We're All Jasmine. Hashtag Education Reform now. By the time she finished her testimony, Congresswoman Erica Dawson, who had introduced the Carter Act, was already making plans to fast-track the bill. That evening, as Jasmine left the Capitol steps to a crowd of cheering supporters, she looked up at the U.S. flag fluttering above and whispered, "We're just getting started." Meanwhile, the fallout from the Sterling scandal rippled outward. The school's prestigious name, once synonymous with wealth and legacy, had become toxic. Under court order, Sterling Academy was shuttered permanently. Its campus, once lush and revered, was sold off to repay victims, cover legal damages, and fund educational scholarships for underprivileged students. On the school's final day, a quiet ceremony took place. Jasmine, Alexandra Chen, and dozens of former students and families gathered outside the iron gates. Catherine Morrison, Blake's mother, the whistleblower who had handed Jasmine the fateful USB, spoke through tears. "We stood by in silence for too long," she said. "Jasmine reminded us that silence is betrayal. And because she spoke out, our children's future will be different." Jasmine placed a single daisy through the rusted bars of the gate. "For everyone they tried to bury," she whispered. "We bloomed anyway." Back home, life slowly took on a new rhythm. Jasmine received over 50 college acceptance letters. She chose Harvard. Not because it was prestigious, but because she wanted to study both law and education policy. Her goal was crystal clear now, to make sure what happened at Sterling never happened again, anywhere. Angela Carter, meanwhile, was promoted to medical ethics director at Boston General Hospital. Once viewed as just a nurse, her fierce advocacy for her daughter had caught the attention of civic leaders across the state. For the first time in a long while, mother and daughter could finally breathe. Not because the fight was over, but because they knew they had won the first battle, and they'd never be alone again. During Jasmine's first year at Harvard, she co-founded the Break the Silence Initiative, a nonprofit that provided students with legal resources, mental health support, and a platform to share their stories. She worked closely with lawmakers on a federal watchdog program that would oversee all disciplinary actions in private schools receiving any government funding. She spoke at conferences, gave lectures at Yale, and was even featured on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "The Girl Who Made Schools Listen." One snowy December evening, Jasmine received a letter from an unlikely name, Blake Morrison. It read, "Jasmine, I'll never be able to undo what I allowed to happen, but I've dedicated the past year to working in school equity reform. Your story shook me awake. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I just wanted you to know that because of you, I became someone better. Thank you." Jasmine folded the letter carefully and set it on her desk. Then, without a word, she turned back to her laptop and continued typing her proposal for expanding the Carter Act nationwide. Because this wasn't about personal closure. It was about creating a legacy. A year after the raid on Sterling, Jasmine returned to her hometown to speak at a public high school's graduation. She walked onto the stage as the guest speaker, looking out over a sea of eager, expectant faces. She smiled. "I know what it feels like to be the only one who looks like you in the room. To be told you're too much, too loud, too smart, too proud. But let me tell you something, the world doesn't change when you stay quiet. It changes when you speak." She paused. When someone cuts you down, you don't disappear. You grow. Stronger. Louder. Bolder. The crowd erupted in applause, parents crying, students leaping to their feet. Jasmine Carter had started a national reckoning. And she was only just beginning. 2 years later, on a warm spring afternoon, Jasmine Carter stood before a sold-out crowd at the National Education Reform Summit in Chicago. Thousands of educators, policymakers, activists, and students packed the auditorium. Her face, now familiar to millions, lit up the jumbo screens above the stage. But her message had only grown bolder with time. "My name is Jasmine Carter," she began, "and I was once told to sit down and be quiet. That standing up for myself would ruin my future. But today, I'm here to tell you, my voice didn't ruin my future. It built it." Applause thundered across the arena. She continued, "The Sterling Academy scandal wasn't the end of my story, it was the start of a movement. One that says every student, regardless of where they're from or the color of their skin, deserves safety, dignity, and justice." Behind her, slides detailed the progress. The Carter Act had passed with bipartisan support and was now federal law. Over 200 schools were under review nationwide for discriminatory practices. Her nonprofit Break the Silence had helped over 5,000 students file formal complaints and receive legal aid. 21 expelled or silenced students had been reinstated thanks to the evidence standards her team helped establish. Jasmine's voice softened as she reached the final part of her speech. "I want you to remember this, it started with one haircut. One moment of cruelty. And it ended with the collapse of a broken system, because we refused to look away. Because we documented the truth. Because we stood up." She glanced to the front row, where Angela Carter sat proudly, holding her phone up to record, eyes glassy with tears. Lauren Kim was beside her, now Jasmine's partner in a national legal task force for education reform. On Angela's other side sat Catherine Morrison and her son Blake, now volunteers and outspoken advocates for equity in schools. After the summit, Jasmine was approached by a shy 13-year-old girl with thick natural hair tied in a bright red ribbon. "Miss Carter," she said, clutching a program in her hands, "they used to make fun of my hair too. But now they don't. Because of you." Jasmine knelt, smiled, and placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "You wear that hair like a crown," she said. "Because it is." That summer, Jasmine was offered a senior position in the U.S. Department of Education's Civil Rights Division. She accepted. Her office was modest but filled with meaning, photos of students she'd helped, awards from civil rights groups, a framed print of the first headline that had ever named her, "Black Girl Bullied, Stands Tall." On her first day, she received a letter in a soft cream envelope. It was from Judge Elizabeth Harper, the woman who had presided over the Sterling case. "Jasmine. I've served over 30 years on the bench, but I've never seen someone stand taller under pressure than you did. What you've built from your pain is nothing short of historic. You changed the law, but more importantly, you changed hearts. Thank you. With admiration. Honorable Elizabeth Harper." Jasmine read the letter twice before setting it beside her keyboard. Then, she turned to a new file. A new case. A new student in need. Because the fight wasn't over. On the 2-year anniversary of the Sterling Academy raid, Jasmine returned to the ruins of the campus, now slated to become a public charter school for underserved youth. The sign had been removed, but the iron gates still stood. She met Alexandra Chen there, the sun casting long shadows across the old stone courtyard. "They're naming it after you, you know," Alexandra said. "The Jasmine Carter School for Justice." Jasmine's breath caught. "I didn't want the fame," she whispered. "I just wanted the hurting to stop." "And it has," Alexandra replied gently. "Because you spoke." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind rustling through the trees. Then Jasmine turned to her, eyes firm. "I want this school to teach more than math and history. I want it to teach courage. The power of truth. The cost of silence. And it will," Alexandra said. As the years passed, Jasmine's influence continued to grow. She published a memoir, Uncut, How They Tried to Silence Me and Sparked a Revolution. It became a bestseller. She gave commencement speeches, partnered with universities, and sat on panels with civil rights legends. Her nonprofit expanded globally, supporting students in countries facing similar discrimination and abuse. But no matter how large her platform became, Jasmine never forgot where it started: one classroom, one cruel act, and the decision not to stay silent. One final scene. Jasmine is older now, late 30s, poised, powerful. She's standing backstage at a high school auditorium in Atlanta. A nervous teenager is pacing behind her, about to give her first public speech after being bullied by her principal. "Miss Carter," the girl says, trembling, "what if my voice shakes?" Jasmine smiles, kneels down beside her, and says gently, "Then let it shake. But speak anyway. Because your truth is stronger than your fear." The girl nods, takes a deep breath, and walks onto the stage. And Jasmine Carter, the girl they once tried to humiliate into silence, watches her go, proud, knowing the torch has been passed. The legacy lives on. Jasmine Carter's journey is a powerful reminder that even a single voice can shatter centuries of silence. Her courage changed laws, dismantled corruption, and inspired a generation to rise. So ask yourself, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Never stay silent in the face of injustice. Speak. Document. Fight back. Thank you for watching this True Echo story. If Jasmine's journey moved you, please like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to True Echo, where every story echoes truth.